Organizing the law so you can better understand it. You probably realized there are lots of laws out there. Many ways exist to divide up the law so it is easier to understand and study. This is only one simple method. The law is divided into three categories. The first is criminal. We do not study any criminal law in this class. Next is civil law. This is the type of law we spend most of our time in this class on. Finally, constitutional law. You may be familiar with the term civil rights. Civil rights should not be confused with civil law. They are two different concepts. Unfortunately, the same word is used. Civil law can be divided into two broad categories: contracts and torts. Tort is just the name for any non-contract injury. Contract law can further be divided into contracts related to property and all other contracts. Actually, in this class, we do not differentiate, we just talk about contracts. Tort law can further be divided into two categories: torts related to physical well-being, such as defamation, which attempts to prevent someone from lying about you, or infliction of emotional distress, which attempts to prevent someone from inflicting severe emotional distress. Torts related to property are torts that attempt to protect your property from being taken or used by another. For example, conversion is the tort of taking the property of another. So, just to emphasize, in this class we study mainly civil law, that is, contracts and torts. Civil law and the civil justice system or process. In this class we study civil law and how it is handled by the civil justice system. The civil justice system is part of the court system. Any particular court system handles both civil cases and criminal cases. We only study civil cases and how the civil justice system handles those cases. Civil law and civil rights law are not the same and should not be confused. Civil law is, remember, contracts and torts. In BLR 202, we do study the civil rights of equal protection and due process. In BLR 235, we do not study many civil rights, although you have already seen a couple as examples. For example, free speech. Civil law is the law that governs lawsuits filed by one entity, and by the term entity, I mean a person, business, government, nonprofit, group, association, against another entity, that is, another person, business, government, nonprofit, group, or association. Hint, you should learn the meaning of entity if you do not already know it. Take a moment and Google that word if you are unfamiliar with it. Entity is sort of like the word critter. If I say there's a critter in the woods back there, you know that there is some animal, bird, insect, something out there, but you don't know specifically what it is. Same thing with the word entity. Civil law and the civil justice system or process. When an entity files a lawsuit, they are entering into the civil justice system. This system is provided by the government to help parties resolve disputes. In a civil lawsuit, one person or business is claiming they have been injured by another person or business and are trying to stop it or get compensated for the injury. Victims can only file civil lawsuits, never criminal lawsuits. Only the government can file a criminal lawsuit. Example, A sues B claiming B breached a contract between them. This is a civil lawsuit. Example, X sues Y claiming Y punched X in the nose, tort of battery. This is a civil lawsuit. Note that one act can lead to two lawsuits, one criminal and one civil. For example, Dro steals Marcia's car and wrecks it. The government could file a criminal lawsuit against Dro to try to punish Dro for the crime of theft. Marcia could file a civil lawsuit against Dro to try to get compensation for her loss. The specific name for this tort is conversion. Here are some common torts. Most torts have a corresponding crime. However, crimes and torts are handled totally separate from each other and are never handled in the same lawsuit. Crimes are handled by the criminal justice system and torts by the civil justice system. Both systems might exist in the same courthouse, but each has a different process or way of handling. Wrongful death. Wrongful death is killing a person. Do not confuse this with the crime of murder. Negligence. Negligence is unreasonable activity resulting in harm to another. Trespass to land. Walking on the land of another. Trespass to chattels or conversion. Taking the physical property of another, such as taking a bicycle. Battery. The offensive touching of another without consent. Assault. Attempted battery. Fraud. Making an untrue statement that induces someone to buy something. Again, many of these have corresponding crimes, but they are handled differently and in different court systems. Pause and answer the following questions. This is also the end of PowerPoint number 3, Hierarchy of Law. Remember, there is a study guide at the end of each PowerPoint in the Readings and Exercises in Business Law text.